There's something about grandparents, something steady, something grounding, something that feels like home, even when everything else in life feels uncertain. When I was younger, I didn't fully understand their value. Like most kids, I thought wisdom came from books, from school, from the fast-moving world around me. But as I grew older, I realized something important. The greatest lessons I ever learned didn't come from classrooms. They came from quiet conversations, simple moments, and the lives my grandparents had already lived. My grandparents didn't have perfect lives. In fact, they went through struggles I can barely imagine. They lived through times when things weren't easy, when comfort wasn't guaranteed, and when every small achievement meant something big. And yet, despite everything, they carried a kind of peace, a kind of strength that you don't often see today. One of the first things I learned from them was the true meaning of patience. In today's world, everything is instant. We want results immediately. We get frustrated when things don't go our way. But my grandparents, they were different. They believed that good things take time. I remember watching my grandmother cook. She never rushed. Every ingredient was added with care, every step done with intention. And somehow the food always tasted better, not just because of the recipe, but because of the love and patience behind it. That's when I realized life works the same way. If you rush everything, you miss the beauty of it. Another lesson they taught me was resilience. Life knocked them down many times. They faced loss, hardship, and moments that could have broken them, but they didn't give up. They kept going. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, consistently. And that kind of strength, it's rare. They taught me that resilience isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, even when no one is watching. They also showed me the importance of gratitude. My grandparents didn't have everything, but they appreciated everything they had. A simple meal was enough. A family gathering was everything. A peaceful evening meant more than any luxury. They didn't chase happiness. They created it in the small things. And honestly, that changed the way I see life. Because today, we're always chasing something bigger, something better, something more. But maybe, just maybe, happiness was never meant to be complicated. Maybe it was always in the little moments we overlook.
Another thing I learned from them was the value of relationships. In a world full of distractions, my grandparents always made time for people. When you sat with them, you had their full attention. No phones, no rush, no distractions, just presence. And that made you feel important. It made you feel heard. It made you feel loved. They taught me that real connections aren't built through quick messages or social media. They're built through time, through listening, through being there. They also taught me something about failure. They never feared it. To them, failure wasn't the end of the road. It was just part of the journey. They believed every mistake had a lesson, every setback had a purpose, and every fall made you stronger. That mindset, it changes everything. Because instead of being afraid to try, you start embracing growth. Instead of avoiding challenges, you start learning from them. And maybe one of the most powerful lessons they gave me was about love. Not the kind of love you see in movies, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet, consistent kind. The kind that shows up every day. The kind that stays even when things aren't perfect. I saw it in the way they cared for each other, in the small gestures, in the understanding they shared without even speaking. It wasn't about perfection, it was about commitment, and that taught me what real love looks like. They also showed me the importance of staying true to who you are. The world changes fast, trends come and go, people try to fit in to be accepted. But my grandparents never pretended to be someone else. They lived simply, honestly, authentically. And that gave them a kind of peace that many people today are still searching for. They taught me that you don't have to follow the crowd to live a meaningful life. You just have to stay true to yourself. Another thing I'll never forget is how they handled time.
They didn't waste it, but they didn't rush it either. They understood that time is the most valuable thing we have, And once it's gone, it's gone. So they spent it wisely, with family, with purpose, with intention. And that made every moment count. As I look back now, I realize something. The lessons my grandparents taught me weren't complicated. They were simple, but they were real. And sometimes the simplest lessons are the ones that matter the most. They taught me how to live, not just exist, how to appreciate, not just achieve, how to love, not just feel. And even though they may not always be around, their lessons stay with me in the way I think, in the way I act, in the way I see the world. Because the truth is, grandparents don't just leave behind memories, they leave behind wisdom. And if you're lucky enough to learn from them, you carry that wisdom for the rest of your life. So take the time, listen to their stories, sit with them a little longer, ask them questions, because one day those moments will become your greatest treasures, and the lessons you learn will shape the person you become.